Are you bored of F1? Are you tired of hearing about whether Ferrari will ever get its strategy right? Are you fed up of Toyota winning Le Mans every year? Well, have we got news for you. There is a lot more motorsport out there than just the top level. And if you dig deep beyond national level, underneath touring cars, way past club rallying, you'll find some bonkers brilliant and downright insane forms of motorsport. And these are the ones we really want to go at, or at least in some cases, to watch from a safe distance. And speaking of doing things from a safe distance, if you do enjoy this video, slide your mouse on over there and click that like button, and then subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. Make sure you see everything that we do. And then let's find out together about motorcycle polo. Motorsport is a global term used to encompass the group of competitive sporting events which primarily involve the use of motorized vehicles. At least that's what Wikipedia says. And that definition shows that you don't have to be racing per se to be involved in motorsport, which is good because we're starting about as far from motor racing as we could. Yes, the sport of motorcycle polo, or motoball as it has also been known, exists and has existed since the 1920s, and yes, we also only found out about it recently. As this Pathé footage from 1936 shows, it is exactly what the name suggests. Polo, but your steed has an engine. The best motorsports are the simplest after all. Apparently, it was founded by a man called Tommy Deadman in the 1920s, although it could easily have been springing up elsewhere. Deadman founded the Wolverhampton Motorcycle Football Club, and before long there was a whole network of teams across the country. By 1928, there was a nationwide competition in the vein of the FA Cup, with teams from across the UK battling to be crowned national champions. It is as simple and ridiculous as you can imagine. Two teams, on bikes, riding around a field, trying to score goals with a big football. And, would you believe it, it's still played today, albeit with bikes that are a little more manoeuvrable than the ones used in the 1920s. What we can't understand is why it's not bigger than, say, golf. If it has wheels and an engine, someone will race it. That's just the law. And it doesn't seem to matter how many wheels. 4, of course. 2, definitely. 3, yeah, go on. Sadly, the gradually diminishing number of Reliant Robins means this is now an extinct sport. But we at GR&R are ready to start a campaign to refound the Reliant factory just so we can go Reliant Robin racing, because it looks absolutely bloody brilliant. Imagine it, a grid of just 800cc city cars, none of them capable of speed or any kind of agility, and each missing that key fourth wheel for stability. It's nothing short of hilarious. In fact, so much of the time in a Reliant Robin race is spent on 2 wheels, it might as well be reclassified as motorcycle racing. And yes, they do fall over just as often as you imagine. There are, just to give you some form of comfort, still classes for Reliant Robins in various local banger races today, but as the number of Robins and even Rialtos diminishes, so does the chance of seeing them race. Sad really, just 1 year of F1 budget could pay for the next 50 years of Robin racing. You're immediately thinking of Top Gear, but it is actually a real sport. Honest. And, genuinely, the object is not to reach the end of the race out front, but to be the last person with an intact caravan still attached to the back of their car. It's real. We absolutely promise. And it's brilliant. Now, we are not suggesting that you go out and start thrashing good quality caravans to death. They may clog the roads a little, but plenty of people love their caravans and we're not going to stop them. But at some point, a caravan reaches the end of its life. And just as banger racing allows cars to go out in a blaze of glory at the end of their lifetimes, so does caravan racing for caravans. Again, we refer to our earlier defining principle. The simpler the motorsport, the better. So, here's the concept. You race, but in reverse.
Off
Done. Can't see why it isn't bigger than NASCAR. And we're not just spitballing here, it actually happened. From 1959 to 1970, DAF made cars that featured a variomatic transmission, which is just a fancy way of saying a CVT. Now, as hateful as CVTs are, they have one, advantage? You can go as fast backwards as forwards, which leads to the obvious conclusion, let's race some DAFs backwards. And so people did, at speeds of up to 80 miles an hour. Racing initially in the Netherlands, because of course it was Dutch, DAF reverse racing was a brilliant concept that was beautifully realised. There was just one problem. The obvious issues of racing in reverse, limited vision, inherent instability, and the human brain having to remember to reverse everything, meant they crashed a lot. And as a result, usable DAFs got rarer and rarer. And as a result of that, it's now extinct as a sport. But if Richard Attenborough can bring back dinosaurs, we reckon reverse racing's decline can be, reversed. But before we move on, we'd just like to say thank you very much for watching this video. We do really appreciate it and we hope you are enjoying it. And if you are, hit the like button and subscribe and hit the bell icon. And then we'll talk about people who ride mopeds for hours on end around fields. Spending hours aboard an uncomfortable, underpowered moped, monotonously lapping a short track, you say. Where do we sign up? There are two forms of moped endurance racing, because of course there are, on or off-road. The former is taken a lot more seriously than the latter, and therefore the latter is much better. But they both have the same spirit. Teams of up to 4 riders lapping for a set number of hours to see who can cross the line first. Perhaps the best known of these events is the Nifty 50, which holds rounds throughout the year at a secret location. Route 34 Motocross Park near Winchester. There are various classes, for 2 and 4-stroke mopeds beginning below 90cc and going all the way up to the heady heights of 125cc racing. To qualify to race, your moped must have been sold as a road-going vehicle and still has to be on road tyres. It is surely the cheapest way to get into bike racing, and quite possibly the most fun. Spending hours aboard an incredibly comfortable, underpowered car, monotonously lapping a track? Well, that sounds even better. And that's what endurance 2CV racing is, with the most famous race of all being the 2CV 24 Hours, bringing the spirit of Le Mans and the French flair of the 2CV to Norfolk. From 2003 to 2014, the 2CV 24-hour race took place every year at Snetterton, challenging people to lap one of the UK's top racing circuits in a car that's entire raison d'etre was to be able to cross a field without breaking an egg. Before that, it was held at Mondello Park, and it switched to Anglesey from 2014 to 16, but it now returns to Snetterton, with the classic 2CV Racing Club acting like a kind of East Anglian ACO. In case you didn't know, a voiture sans permis is a microcar, or a quadricycle in official UK government parlance. The kind of car you don't need a full licence to drive, hence the name, which quite literally translates to car without permit. And of course, they exist, so people race them. They are legally limited to 28 miles per hour on the roads and have minuscule, often 2-stroke engines, so they aren't fast. But what on this brilliant list is? Voitures sans permis have been around for decades and are particularly popular in France, where there is even a magazine entirely dedicated to their existence. Amazingly, it took until the 1990s for someone to look at a sans permis and realise they could be raced, at which point sans permis racing was finally born. Using these 49cc cars, complete with glass fibre bodies, sans permis racers hurl themselves around fields and off-road courses, systematically tearing their poor machines apart with nothing other than a roll cage to give them extra protection. And it still exists today, very much only in France. Well, that was a set of incredible forms of motorsport that even we didn't know about until reasonably recently. And we definitely want to go at all of them. But that's not it. There's thousands of forms of motorsport out there, and we want you to tell us what should be in our next video. Obviously there's lawnmower racing, but what else? What about Barbie Jeep racing? That's another thing, you know.